Where did the first ancestors of the Romans come from? I have no idea. When did the Romans start building villages and live a life of settled agriculture by what and how to grow? I don't know either. Of course, none of this matters. Importantly, it is said that since 500 BC, the people of the Roman village have continued to wage wars, and their territory has become larger and larger. Picture. By the middle of the 4th century BC, the conquest of central Italy was achieved through 3 more Samnite wars. The first 2 Samnite wars, although miraculous, were not exciting enough. 1. In 298 BC, the Third Samnite War began. After the Romans controlled the north and center, they attacked the south. In 280 BC, a great war broke out between Rome and Thalington. It is said that Thalington was a colonial city of the Greeks. Greeks don't farm land no matter whether they have food or not, they only need to build cities. So Pylos, king of Epirus in Greece, led 22,000 infantry and archers, 3,000 cavalry, and 20 war elephants to help. Thinking question 1, the Greek king dispatched 30,000 expeditionary troops at one time, so how many people does he have? More than 2,000 years ago, 22,000 infantry and archers, 3,000 cavalry, at least 5,000 horses, and 20 elephants were dispatched, which was much larger than the Normandy landing battle. How did the king of Greece, King Pylos, transport such a huge team from faraway Greece to Italy? Leaving aside the 30,000 soldiers and weapons and food, with so many horses and elephants alone, I am afraid that only large transport planes and aircraft carrier formations can complete the transportation task. Thinking question 2, if there are no large transport planes and aircraft carriers, what ships did the Greeks use to transport thousands of horses and 20 elephants to Italy? Perhaps ancient Greece already had large transport aircraft or aircraft carriers. The matter of the Greeks is a matter of the fairy world, and only experts in Western history can explain it clearly. Ancient Greek Navy. 2. The Greeks used elephants to fight, which is naturally like raising nuclear weapons. At first the Romans, too, panicked for a while. However, the Romans, who were also part of the fairy world, soon turned the tide of battle. What magic did the Romans use to resist the Greek cavalry and elephant soldiers? According to Stavridino's General History of the World, Roman army weaponry, in addition to the traditional helmets, shields, spears, and swords, the Romans equipped their legions with effective offensive weapons, the iron-tipped javelin. It turned out that the most advanced weapon of the Roman legion was the javelin. According to reports, on July 20, 1984, former GDR athlete Uwe Horn set a permanent world record in the men's javelin throw, 104.80 meters. At the same time, the bows and crossbows used by Chinese soldiers had a range of 100 to 200 meters, and they were much more powerful than javelins. People with a little common sense, even those who have read The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, know that the ancient Chinese would have a headache when they encountered elephant soldiers. Specially trained soldiers can effectively deal with cavalry. Anyone with a little common sense knows that with the equipment of the Roman legion, when encountering cavalry and elephant soldiers, the Roman legion is an authentic leak even if it has millions of people. After all, it was a fight between gods and gods. According to the arrangement of Roman history, the Greeks withdrew their troops, and the Romans successfully unified Italy. Thinking question 3, how did the Romans defeat the 3,000 cavalry and 20 elephant soldiers of the Greeks with helmets, shields, spears, swords and iron-tipped javelins? 3. Even more amazing things are yet to come, according to Stavridino's Global History. The Romans, in the homeland, lost even more heavily, but they had 750,000 Italian combatants in their backup. So, Pyrrhus retreated in 272 BC. After fighting every day and countless deaths, Rome has 750,000 reserve soldiers in addition to Roman citizens. Based on 2/3 of the young and middle-aged men being the source of soldiers, and each young and middle-aged man having a family of 5, Rome at this time had a population of at least 7 million. Including slaves, the population of Rome should be 10 million. With such a large population, how big is Rome at this time? The territory of Rome is only over 90,000 square kilometers in total. More than 80% are mountains. More than 50% are mountains. Breaking the sky, Rome at this time has at most 18,000 square kilometers of livable land. If 60% of the land is reclaimed and cultivated, then the reclaimed and cultivated land is about 10,000 square kilometers or 15 million mu. Based on this, we might as well go wild and exaggerate the productivity level of Rome infinitely. Assume that Rome's grain yield per mu is 2,000 years ahead of Europe, reaching the level of France in 1600, that is, the grain yield per mu is 17.962 liters. Then, the total annual grain yield of Rome is 15 million times 17.962 liters, 269.43 million liters. Based on an annual per capita ration of 450 liters, the total population of Rome is 269.43 million liters divided by 4.50598,733 people. It can be seen that even if Rome is 2,000 years ahead of Europe, at this time, the population that Rome can support on the land is only 600,000, and a total of 120,000 households live scattered among the mountains. Let go of the courage to brag again, bragging and bragging, assuming that Rome's grain yield per mu has reached the level of France around 1,770, and the yield per mu is 31.433 liters, then the total annual grain yield of Rome is 15 million times 31.433 liters, 471.495 million liters. Based on an annual per capita ration of 450 liters, the total population of Rome is 471.495 million liters divided by 4501,047,766 people. It can be seen that even if the sky is blown, the population that can be supported by Roman land is only 1 million people, and 200,000 families live scattered on 90,000 square kilometers of land. For the grain yield per mu in France, please refer to college students. Greek land can support at most 280,000 ancient Greeks, and Athens can only have 5,000 people. Roman history is so absurd. Thinking question 4, how many people does Rome have at this time? Fortunately, the territory of Rome is only more than 90,000 square kilometers of poor mountains and bad waters. If Rome had 900,000 square kilometers of poor mountains and bad waters, wouldn't it have a population of 70 million, plus slaves? Wouldn't it have a population of 100 million? A little later than this, China's Qin dynasty had a land area of about 3.6 million square kilometers, 40 times that of Rome. Based on this calculation, the Qin dynasty should have a population of 400 million. Considering China's pleasant climate, fertile land, and advanced agricultural technology, the Qin dynasty had at least 800 million people. As long as we maintain a normal mind that is neither xenophobic nor obsequious, we will find that most of the Western ancient history circulated in China cannot withstand scrutiny. Such is the history of ancient Rome. Below, based on scientific common sense and logical reasoning, I list a few as follows, and welcome criticism and correction. 1. What was the population of Italy more than 2,000 years ago? According to Roman history, the Roman Empire started in present-day Italy. From a single village, the whole of Italy was gradually conquered, and then mainly relying on the source of Italian soldiers, Roman legions were established one after another, and a large empire spanning Europe, Asia, and Africa was established. This first involves a key question: what was the population of Italy more than 2,000 years ago? Because this is directly related to the source of troops of the Roman Empire. The basic data about Italy are as follows. 1. Farmland area. Today, Italy covers an area of 301,333 square kilometers. Today, with advanced technology, farmland only accounts for 10% of the country's land area, that is, 30,000 square kilometers. In fact, in ancient times when agricultural technology was backward, it was impossible to have so much farmland. At the same time, in ancient times, places such as the Po River Plain were smaller than today. These factors are not considered here. 2. Soil quality. The Apennine Peninsula is a mountainous area with few plains and barren land. 3. Climatic conditions. The Apennine Peninsula has a Mediterranean climate, which is not conducive to agriculture, especially not suitable for staple food cultivation. Based on this, we still estimate the population of Italy more than 2,000 years ago based on the possible grain output. 30,000 square kilometers, or 45 million mu. First, assume that the climate and soil of ancient Italy were the same as that of the land of China. According to Chinese classics, in China during the spring and autumn and warring states periods, only 100 mu of fertile land could feed a family, 5 people. If it was slightly worse, it would take 200 mu, and if it was less, it would need 300 mu, according to Jolie de Sidhu said, 100 mu of land is not easy, 200 mu of land is easy, and 300 mu of land is easy again. Mencius says, Joe people are thorough with 100 mu. 100 mu don't take away the land, and a family of several mouths will not be hungry. 1 mu in the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period is roughly equivalent to 1/3 of today's. That is to say, there are 33 mu of good land, 60 mu of middle field, and 100 mu of bad land to support a family. Taking the average value, only 60 mu can support a family of 5. Well, the land of ancient Italy could feed 45 million mu divided by 60 equals 750,000 households. Calculated on the basis of 5 persons per household, the total population is 5 times 750,000 households equals 3.75 million people. Now, we plug in factors like soil, climate, etc. Assuming that the grain output of ancient Italy was 60% of China's level, then the land of ancient Italy could actually support 750,000 households times 60% equals 450,000 households. Calculated on the basis of 5 persons per household, the total population is 5 times 450,000 households equals 2.25 million people. The level of agricultural technology in ancient Europe was very backward. Until the 17th and 18th centuries, European agricultural technology still lagged behind that of China, and the output of farmland was much less than that of China. The above estimates do not take this into account at all. Therefore, the above valuation is the upper limit value. In fact, this still greatly overestimated the number of households in ancient Italy. The most typical evidence is, in the Tang dynasty of China, the grain output of about 40,000 square kilometers of fertile land in the Guangzhou plain could not feed a population of 3 million. For details, see, original according to the 24 Histories Shuoji, asking several questions about the history of ancient Greece. From this we can see 1. During the spring and autumn period and the Warring States period in China, Italy had a population of 450,000 households and 2.25 million people. 2. At that time, there were no more than 450,000 young and middle-aged men in Italy. Calculated according to the fact that farming, military affairs are divided into half, and military service and administrative logistics are divided into half, the limit value of Roman soldiers is about 100,000. 3. Calculated on the basis that 5% of the grain output supports the non-agricultural population. Premise, the grain output is indeed enough to eat. At this time, the non-agricultural population in Italy is only 22,500 households and 112,500 people. Even if there is only the city in the whole of Italy, that is, the non-agricultural population of Italy is all concentrated in the city of Rome, the population of Rome is only 110,000. Considering food transportation and other issues, the resident population of the city of Rome is at most 80,000. These are the 3 most critical data for our study of the Roman Empire. 2. The history of Rome's origin is a fiction. Where did the first ancestors of the Romans come from? I don't know, it doesn't matter, because, on the territory of today's Italy, whether there were Romans more than 1,000 years ago, only God knows. It is said that since 500 BC, the Romans in a tiny place have expanded their territory through continuous wars. By the middle of the 4th century BC, the conquest of central Italy was achieved through 3 Samnite wars. 1. The non-existent Samnite War. The first 2 Samnite wars are not worth mentioning. In 298 BC, the Third Samnite War began. After the Romans controlled the north and center, they attacked the south. In 280 BC, a great war broke out between Rome and Thalington. It is said that Terinidon was a colonial city of the Greeks, so Pylos, king of Epirus of Greece, led 22,000 infantry and archers, 3,000 cavalry, and 20 war elephants to help. 2,002 or 300 years ago, how did 3,000 cavalrymen, at least 5,000 horses, and 20 elephants be transported from distant Greece to Italy? Could it be transported by a large transport plane or an aircraft carrier? According to Stavridino's Global History, Peking University Press, p. 122. Roman army armament, in addition to the traditional helmets, shields, lances, and swords, the Romans equipped their legions with effective offensive weapons, the iron-tipped javelin. Indigenous fighting. The Romans had 750,000 Italian combatants in their reserves, although their losses were even greater. So Pyrrhus retreated in 272 BC. The Romans used iron-tipped javelins to defeat the Greek cavalry and elephant formations. Could it be that he won by reciting a spell? 2. The non-existent source of troops. Stavridis said that after a large number of Roman soldiers died in battle, there were still 750,000 reserve troops. How big was Rome at that time? 90,000 square kilometers. Less than a third of the size of Italy. Earlier, we estimated that at that time, the population of the whole of Italy was at most 450,000 households and 2.25 million people. A glance at the map shows that the plains of Italy are mainly concentrated in the northern region, that is to say, the population of Italy at that time was mainly concentrated in the north. Because the central region is basically a mountainous area. Even if the population of Rome is calculated according to the average level. 450,000 households times 90,000 divided by 300,000 households, 135,000 households. 5 people times 135,000 675,000 people. If the actual amount of farmland and plantations in the central region are considered, based on a 40% discount, Rome has 80,000 households and 400,000 people, and it is sparsely distributed in countless mountain valleys, each cultivating 3 to 5 acres of susukita. 80,000 households, or about 8,000 young and middle-aged men. Calculated on the basis of half working in agriculture and half serving in the army, the limit value of Roman soldiers is 40,000. Calculated on the basis that 5% of the grain output supports the non-agricultural premise, the grain output is indeed enough to eat, it can be known that in Rome at this time, the non-agricultural population was only 4,000 households and 20,000 people. Even if the non-agricultural population is all concentrated in the city of Rome, it is only the size of a county. From this, we can imagine, in the era when the Roman village played the bronze watch method, how many Romans were there in this village. 3. The expedition of the Roman nothing. It is said that between 264 BC and 146 BC, 3 Punic Wars were fought. The result was that the Carthaginians, who had been kings and hegemony in the western Mediterranean for a long time, were wiped out by the Romans. The most remarkable thing is that the combat level of the Roman fleet surpassed that of the Europeans 1,000 years later. The fleet of the Romans crossed the Mediterranean Sea again and again, sailing more than 700 kilometers from the Apennine Peninsula, and went straight to the opposite shore. The truth of history is that in Europe, people have always had a general fear of the sea. Before the compass needle was introduced to the Mediterranean in the 14th century, all ships were safe and accustomed to sailing routes, along the lines that could see the coast that is, sailing on the sea 5 kilometers away from the coastline. In other words, before the 14th century, European ships did not have the ability to cross the Mediterranean at all. For details, see Original Mediterranean Civilization. A Big Cowhide. To some it is religion. Let's review the mathematics knowledge of junior high school. This is a middle school math problem. What is the concept of crossing the sea of more than 700 kilometers? It is the same distance from Shanghai to Nagasaki, Japan. It is the same distance from Shantou to the beautiful coast of the Philippines. Could it be that the Roman fleet used top-secret high-tech navigation equipment that was more than 1,000 years ahead of the world? What's more interesting is that the Carthaginians could not eat or drink for 3 years. During the Third Punic War, 149 BC 146 BC, Rome sent an army of 80,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, and 600 ships across the Mediterranean Sea to attack Carthage. Besieged by the Roman army for 3 years, the people in Carthage still had food and drink, and still had enough strength to rush out of the city to fight back from time to time. The Roman army invaded the city of Carthage, and the Carthaginians fought street battles with the Roman soldiers for 6 days and nights. The final result, Carthage was massacred, 60,000 captives were sold as piglets, and Carthage became the Roman province of Africa. Scientific common sense tells us that the cross-sea expedition of the Roman Empire is a purely fictional fairy tale. For the capital of the Roman Empire is non-existent. Stavridis' General History of the World describes the city of Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire, as follows. Of course, the greatest city of the empire was Rome. It covered 5,000 acres and its population was estimated to be over 1 million in the 2nd century AD. It is said that successive emperors of the Roman Empire were very concerned about the feelings of Roman citizens. In order to make Roman citizens feel at ease, they built the city of Rome like a bunch of flowers. For example, in order to make the stomachs of Roman citizens comfortable, many bakeries were built. For example, in order to make the eyes of Roman citizens comfortable, thousands of statues were erected, more than 700 pools were dug, more than 500 fountains were built, and so on. For example, in order to make the skin of Roman citizens comfortable, many public bathhouses were built. For example, in order to make the legs and feet of Roman citizens comfortable, wide and smooth roads and highways were built. For example, in order to make the Roman citizens feel comfortable, a huge number of arenas, sports fields, and theaters were built. It is said that the arena is big enough to accommodate 250,000 spectators. There are also super prosperous pairs, super large shopping malls, super many brothels. In addition, it is said that there were many aristocrats and slave owners in the Roman Empire, and their residences in Rome were very large and luxurious. According to experts, there are historical records to prove that there are 1,780 palace-like houses in the city of Rome, and each house is a city by itself. Tree-lined gardens, and man-made birdhouses. Well, it's true, the Roman nobles know how to live, and they have more cows than the Jews mansion in A Dream of Red Mansions. At least the Jews mansion doesn't know how to build a market in their own yard. Of course, the city of Rome also has magnificent palaces, huge barracks, and well-equipped government agencies. Is this true, or is it false? Stavrianos said, the city of Rome covers 5,000 acres. 5,000 acres is 20 square kilometers. In this place, can more than 10 people be packed? Let's think about it a little bit rationally. There are 1,780 noble houses in the city of Rome. For each house, we only calculate according to the area occupied by the Giao family courtyard. 8,724 square meters times 1,780 equals 155,28720 square meters equals 15.5 square kilometers. Look, the palace has no place to put it. Rome's bathhouses and entertainment venues can only be stuffed underground. Millions of Roman citizens can only live in the sky. By the way, Chang'an City, the capital of the Han Dynasty in China, has an area of 36 square kilometers and a population of about 500,000. People complained about crowding. Chang'an City, the capital of the Tang Dynasty in China, covers an area of 84 square kilometers and has a population of just over 1 million. At that time, people called it noisy. 5. The area and population of the Roman Empire are non-existent. According to standard Roman history, Octavian killed Antony and Cleopatra, marking the birth of the Roman Empire. According to History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire written by Gibbon, an Englishman in the 18th century, Commercial Press, 199,702. To give a more accurate account of the greatness of Rome, he may say that the breadth of the Roman Empire, from the Antonine Wall and the northern border of Dacia to the Atlas Mountains and the Tropic of Cancer, was more than 2,000 miles, and that from the Western Sea to the Euphrates the length is still more than 3,000 miles. It lies in the most favorable part of the temperate zone, between latitudes 24 degrees and 56 degrees north, and has an area estimated at no less than 1,600,000 square miles of land, most of which is fertile. p. 26. We are told that during the period when the Emperor Claudius was the census officer, he counted a total of 6,945,000 Roman citizens. This figure, together with the appropriate proportion of women and children, should bring the total to about 20 million. According to this, a loose estimate puts the total population of the Roman Empire at 120 million. p. 41. It can be seen from this, the area of the Roman Empire is 1.6 million square miles, or about 4.14 million square kilometers. The population is 120 million. At the same time, in China, it was the Han Dynasty. According to Han Shu, the land is 9,302 miles from east to west, and 30,368 miles north and south. The number of households is 1,233,062, and the population is 5,959,004,978. The Han Dynasty is extremely prosperous. The population at the peak of the Han Dynasty, 5,959,4978 people, or 5,959,4978 million people. It is only 49.658% of the Roman Empire. Blame it? Looking at the map, you can know that the area of the Han Dynasty is at least twice that of the Roman Empire. The core area of the Han Dynasty is at least 5 million square kilometers. China has 4 distinct seasons and good weather, which is most suitable for the development of agriculture. The climate conditions are much better than those along the Mediterranean coast. In most parts of China, the land is fertile and there are few Gobi deserts. North Africa and West Asia of the Roman Empire are mostly desert and semi-desert areas with dry climate, and Europe is also a high-latitude, mountainous area. During the Han Dynasty, except for the wars between the Western Han and the Eastern Han, the country was peaceful and the people were stable, while the Roman Empire was always in a state of large-scale war, and at least 108,000 young men died in the war every year. The government of the Han Dynasty has always encouraged childbirth, and there are no slaves inferior to pigs and dogs. Why did the population of the Roman Empire far exceed that of the Han Dynasty in China? In fact, this is not surprising at all. As we all know, the area of Europe is 10.16 million square kilometers, which is 2.45 times that of the Roman Empire. As we all know, in the 1860s and 1870s, Europe was dominating the world, and Europeans had food, drink, and spare money to play, and life was extremely enjoyable. However, history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire says, Roman Empire 120 million, this population may have exceeded the population of modern Europe. p. 41. Gibbon declared that the total population of the Roman Empire over 2,000 years ago exceeded the population of the whole of Europe in the 1860s and 1870s. There is no doubt that the population of the Roman Empire is pure fiction. 6. The territory of the Roman Empire is non-existent. It is said that around the 1st century, the Roman Empire expanded into a huge empire spanning Europe, Asia, and Africa. In 395 AD, the Roman Empire split into 2 parts. The Western Roman Empire fell in AD 476. Western Europe and the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, entered a feudal society and were destroyed by the Turkish Ottoman Empire in 1453 AD. During the reign of Emperor Trajan, 98 to 117, of the Antonine dynasty, the territory of the empire reached its largest, from Spain and Britain in the west, to the upper reaches of the Euphrates River in the east, from northern Africa in the south, to the Rhine and Danube in the north, across Europe, Asia, and Africa, 3 continents, covering an area of 4.14 million square kilometers, the Mediterranean became the inland sea of the empire. However, this territory is not only not supported by the historical records since the Han Dynasty in China, but also by the documents of Nestorianism, the patriarch of Christianity. According to Roman history, in 64 BC, the second year of Emperor Yuankang of the Western Han Dynasty in China, the Roman Empire wiped out the Seleucid kingdom, controlled the Mediterranean coast in Western Asia, and became neighbors with the Parthia kingdom. However, as early as the time of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, Chinese envoys came to the Angzi kingdom and were received by the Angzi king with a super high standard. Sima Qian said, at the beginning, the envoys of the Han Dynasty came to Angzi, and King Angzi ordered 20,000 cavalry to welcome them to the east boundary. King Angzi sent 20,000 cavalry to wait for the envoys of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty at the border, and then escorted them all the way to the capital. What a passion! Regrettably, Chinese history books did not say anything about the Seleucid kingdom, but said that the west neighbor of Parthia, the country on the Mediterranean Sea, is the Tiazai kingdom, and this Tiazai kingdom is a vassal state of Parthia. Han Shu biography of the western regions says, the country of Angzi is connected to Kanju in the north, Huai Mountain in the east, and Tiazai in the west. Foreign. Since the time of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, China has had frequent exchanges with Angzi. In the Eastern Han Dynasty, Chinese envoys traveled all over the mountains and rivers of today's Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and other places. Therefore, the history books will clearly record the routes and journeys to various countries, the customs, products, climate, etc. of various places. Book of the later Han Dynasty biography of the western regions. Li Cuban traveled for more than 60 days to Huai Mountain and left the country, and traveled southwest for more than 100 days to Tiazai. The city of Tiazai is on the mountain, and it is more than 40 miles away. It is facing the West Sea. Turn north to east, and go back to the horse for more than 60 days to rest. The rear service belongs to Taizai, who is a general and supervises the small cities. In the 9th year of Headi Yuan, the guard class Zhao sent Ganying as an envoy to Dakan, and arrived in Tiao branch. Proximity to the sea, wanting to pass, and Angzi. Sparrow. Travel 3,400 miles westward from Angzi, the country of Aman. Travel 3,600 miles westward from Aman to the country of Spin. Cross the river from Spin south, and then go southwest to the country of Lugo 960 miles. The western boundary of Angzi is extremely bad. From then on, taking the sea in the south will lead to the Great Qin. In the 9th year of Emperor Yongyuan of the Han Dynasty, that is, in 97, Ban Chao sent Ganying to Angzi and asked Ganying to go to Dakan. Ganying came to Taizai of Lingxi Ha. Taizai is still a vassal state of Angzi, and Angzi has officials and troops stationed here. Therefore, Taizai is the rest in the west. Ganying planned to cross the sea here and go to Dakan. Because the nationality belongs to the Angzi Bodmans, the sea is vast, Ganying gave up. It can be seen that the resting place is on the verge of the Mediterranean Sea. So, where is the Asian territory of the Roman Empire? Parthia Empire in Chinese historical records. Could it be that the Seleucid kingdom destroyed by the Roman Empire was a kingdom of gods? The Asian territory of the Roman Empire is a fairyland? Could it be that Angzi occupied this place when Ganying arrived? Well, let's continue to read Chinese history books. Sui Shu Biography of the Western Regions. The capital of Persia reaches the city of Sasulan in Heshui, which is the hometown of Taizai. Its king is named Kuzahi. The capital is more than 10 miles away. Every time Persia sends a contribution, it goes west to the sea for hundreds of miles, and goes east. The new country is more than 4,000 miles away, the northwest is 4,500 miles to Fusu, and the east is 1,700 miles to Guazhou. Emperor Yangdi sent Yunkai Lieutenant Liu to travel to Persia, and sent an envoy to Suiyu to pay tribute to Fang Huo. Old Tang Book Biography of the Western Regions. Persia is 15,300 miles west of the capital. It is connected to Tokhara and Kong in the east, the Hazar tribe of Turks in the north, Fufu in the northwest, and the sea in the west and south. There are hundreds of thousands of households. There are 2 cities with lives, and there are more than 10 big cities, which are like the Li Palace in China. The Great Food Kingdom was originally in the west of Persia. They went into exile, crossed the Henhe River, and plundered merchants, and their numbers gradually increased, so they separated the western border of Persia and established themselves as kings. New Book of Tang Biography of the Western Regions. Persia is located in the west of Juda River, and it is 15,000 miles away from the capital. It is connected to Tokhara and Kong in the east, and it is adjacent to the Turkic Hazar tribe in the north. It is close to the sea in the southwest. It is 4,000 miles away from the northwest, and it is Fufu. Dashi, this is the land of Persia. During the Sui dynasty, there were Persian people who herded in Jufan Magna mountain. The deceitful people took their lives in the Hangeo river, robbed the merchants. Baoxi despised himself as the king, and moved the black stone treasure. Yes. The people of the country went to fight for it, but they were all defeated, so they forced it. After destroying Persia and destroying Fufu, there was only millet and wheat Kanyu. From this we can see that later, Persia replaced Parthia. As we all know, Persia has very close contacts with China. Part of Persia is under the jurisdiction of the Angzi Protectorate of the Tang dynasty. Most of the last kings and nobles of the Persian kingdom died of old age in China. It can be said that China has a thorough understanding of Persia. According to these records, the territory of Persia was adjacent to the sea to the west and south, and the Arabian Peninsula also belonged to Persia. Therefore, history books believe that Muhammad, the founder of Islam, was originally a Persian national. Dashi was a country established by rebellious subjects. According to the current world history, the army of the Arab Empire first defeated Eastern Rome and occupied the Mediterranean region in Western Asia belonging to the Eastern Roman Empire before entering the Mesopotamia and seizing the base of the Persian Empire. However, where is the region along the Mediterranean Sea in Western Asia that belonged to the Eastern Roman Empire? Is it in heaven? For details, please read original some textual research on the origin of Dakan, Yuan, and Christianity. 7. The granary and technological and cultural center of the Roman Empire are nothing. It is said that after the Roman legion conquered Egypt, Egypt became the granary of the Roman Empire, especially the city of Rome. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was the technological and cultural center of the Roman Empire, and there was also an Alexandria school. The climate conditions in Egypt are poor, with little rain, which is not suitable for food production, and the food output is extremely low. Its output can guarantee its own survival, which is very remarkable. The Nile Delta is an alluvial plain. More than 2,000 years ago, the area of the Nile Delta was at most half of what it is today, no more than 12,000 square kilometers, including a large semi-desert area. For now, let's compare the level of agricultural technology in ancient Egypt by 2,000 years, regardless of climate factors, with China's Tang dynasty. There is no doubt that the agricultural production capacity of the Tang dynasty was at least 4 or 5 times higher than that of ancient Egypt. The Guanzhou Plain in Shaanxi, China is 36,000 square kilometers, just 3 times the size of the Nile Delta. The land here is fertile, the water and grass are abundant, the weather is good, and the natural conditions are 100 times better than those in the Nile Delta. However, in the Tang dynasty, the population of the Guanzhou Plain was less than 3 million, and there was always a severe shortage of food, so that the famous idioms that the emperor became the son of chasing food and Chang and Miki appeared. The grain produced in the Guanzhou Plain of 36,000 square kilometers cannot feed 3 million people. More than 2,000 years ago, could the Nile Delta of 12,000 square kilometers have grain exported to Rome? Even if Egypt had grain exports, how did the Romans cross the Mediterranean Sea and transport it to the city of Rome? The statement about Alexandria is simply absurd. It is said that Alexandria has a population of 500,000, neat streets, brilliant ports and lighthouses. What's more, the Alexandria Library has a collection of 700,000 volumes, which was the largest library in the world at that time. The best university scholar. According to a well-known the first stage of ancient Greek civilization is the so-called classical period. The second stage is the pre-Alexander period. With the conquest of Alexander, the Macedonian king, the center of Greek mathematics in the 4th century BC was transferred to the city of Alexandria in the lower reaches of the Nile until the Romans captured the city in 146 BC, and it was the heyday of Greek mathematics. The third stage is the late Alexander period, from 146 BC to the beginning of the 4th century AD. Under Roman rule, it still maintained the Greek mathematical tradition, however, is at the end of its strength. Egypt's coastal cities, Alexandria. The story is full and the science is skinny. According to scientific research, more than 2,000 years ago, the Alexandria city in Egypt today did not exist at all. 2,000 years ago, the Nile Delta was still developing. The city of Alexandria at that time, see picture below, was, at most, a small island. Could it be that the Ptolemaic kingdom and its capital are this small island smaller than a palm and far away from the mainland? Could it be that the stories of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra happened on this small island back then? For details, see original ancient Egyptian civilization. According to science and historical records, the answer is, nothing. 8. The Julian calendar of Julius Caesar is nothing. It is said that before 150 BC, the Greek astronomer Sosigenes compiled the Julian calendar and brought it to Alexandria, which was still the Dragon Palace under the sea. After Caesar entered Egypt, he had an affair with Cleopatra in the non-existent Alexandria. Therefore, Caesar introduced talents from the undersea Dragon Palace and compiled the Julian calendar. The problem is that, after a little calculation, we can see that the Julian calendar should have been born around 250 years before the end of the Three Kingdoms period in China, which was the period when Sima Zhaozai's heart is known to everyone, and was born more than 400 years later than Sosigenes, and was born more than 400 years later than Julius Caesar was born nearly 300 years later. Now, I'm doing a simple calculation. Who made the Julian calendar too simple? In the Julian calendar, there are 365.25 days in a year, with a leap day every 4 years. Same as during the Han Dynasty in China. In today's Gregorian calendar, there are 365.242198 days in a year, and we take 365.2422 for calculation. Then, implement the Julian calendar. 1. There will be an overdraft of 0.0078 days per year. 0. 2422. 0.25 minus 0.0078 days. 2. Every 128.205 years, there will be an overdraft of 1 day. 1 divided by 0.0078 equals 128.205 years. 3. The so-called Russian calendar is the Julian calendar. The famous October Revolution occurred on October 25, 1917 in the Russian calendar, November 7 in the Gregorian calendar, which means that the error accumulated to 13 days. 13 days of overdraft. 128.205 times 13 1666.67 years. 4 calculated in 1917, then the first year of the Julian calendar should be 1917 to 1666.67 years, about 250 years. It can be seen that the so-called Julian calendar should have been born around 250 years ago at the end of the Three Kingdoms period in China, which was the period when Sima Zhaozai's heart is known to everyone. Obviously, the Julian calendar was born more than 400 years later than the so-called ancient Greek astronomer Sosigenes, and nearly 300 years later than Julius Caesar. It is said that in 286, Diocletian divided the Roman Empire into two parts, thus giving birth to Eastern Rome and Western Rome. In other words, the Julian calendar was not born until shortly before the disintegration of the Roman Empire. It is said that in the biography of the 12 emperors of Rome, the Holy Julius, written by the ancient Romans, there is a moving story. Caesar, he immediately reformed the calendar. Previously, the calendar was so chaotic due to the arbitrary interpolation of the high priests, that the harvest season was not in summer, and the grape harvest season was not in autumn. He adjusted the year to 365 days and abolished a leap month. A leap day is added every 4 years to make the year correspond to the movement of the sun. This story is very interesting. In the Mediterranean climate zone with only rainy season and dry season, there are 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. This is a very strange phenomenon. It is also very simple to verify, whether it is the climate of the Greek peninsula, Egypt, or the Apennine Peninsula of Italy, there are no 4 seasons. Could it be that Julius Caesar was a figure in the Three Kingdoms and Jin dynasties of China? In Eurasia, only in China, there is a significant division of the 4 seasons, so it is necessary and possible to come up with a calendar of the 4 seasons and the 24 solar terms. 90 emperors and generals of ancient Rome are nothing. In recent years, some people have declared that all Chinese history that has not been verified by archaeology should be questioned, and should be designated as pseudo-history or legend. Today's very domineering foreign culture-archaeology, originated in the West. Chinese archaeologists are all disciples of Westerners. Applying archaeology to the investigation of ancient Roman history must be of great universal value. The West has been conducting ancient Roman archaeology for N years. May I ask, where are the tombs of ancient Roman emperors and generals and their unearthed text materials? It is said that the Roman Empire was a 1,000-year empire. It is also said that there were so many emperors in ancient Rome for thousands of years, it is hard to count. HTTP://URL. A history of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire has left behind dazzling names of civil servants and generals. According to the biography of the Holy Julius, a bronze book plate was found in the tomb of Capus, the founder of Capua, known as the tomb in the time of Caesar the Great, with Greek letters and Greek letters on it. Engraved with the inscription. The Greek culture, which attached so much importance to the culture of the mausoleum, was of course passed on to the Romans. When Julius Caesar was buried, there was a gilded mourning hall, an ivory funeral bed, days and nights of mourning, and marble inscriptions. One of Octavian's wills before his death requested that his autobiography be engraved on the copper plate of the commemorative plaque and placed at the entrance of the mausoleum. It can be seen that the ancient Roman emperors had a tradition of attaching great importance to mausoleums. It stands to reason that as many emperors as there should be as many large-scale tombs. Considering Rome has a tradition of usurping the throne, I think at least 70% of the emperors have luxurious tombs. Up and down. It is said that the emperors and generals of the Roman Empire, including governors and generals, have their own family cemeteries. Considering that there are rich and poor, at least the 1,000 or 2,000 noble families mentioned above must have their own family cemetery. It is certain that there must be many treasures such as copper plate inscriptions and stone inscriptions in the family cemeteries of emperors and generals. According to the basic requirements of archaeological experts, compare the DNA of the unearthed bones, and compare the large number of unearthed written historical materials proving the identity and deeds of the tomb owner with the handed-down documents. Only when they are basically consistent, the handed-down documents about ancient Roman history are reliable. I think, With the development of Western archaeology and the number of experts, the tomb of the Roman emperor should have been found, right? Have you found the cemeteries of most of the generals and their families? However, where is the cemetery of the emperors and generals of the Roman Empire? How to prove that these emperors and generals once existed? If you don't even know where the tombs of the emperors of the Roman Empire are, but indulge in the man-made Pompeii and bare-butt sculptures of unknown origin, it is a waste of time and resources. A suggestion, by the way: if Western archaeologists really don't have time, they can import Luoyang shovels from China and distribute one to each of the people of Italy, Spain, Gaul, and Britain. With a 5-year period, I wonder if there will be any good news. 10. The following questions are basically valid for the Roman Empire. The following are links to 8 articles, all of which are questions about the pseudo-history of ancient Greece. Most of the questions, changing ancient Greece to ancient Rome, are still valid. That is to say, with regard to the history of ancient Rome, at least dozens or even hundreds of almost heavenly questions can be listed. 1. Original: did ancient Greece have developed industries? I have 10 questions here. 2. Original: did ancient Greece have weights and measures? Elementary geometry, authentic geometry. 3. Original: comparing with the 24 histories Shiwoji, ask a few questions about ancient Greek currency. 4. Original: have you read the 24 histories? Come and answer 62 questions about the history of ancient Greece. 5. Original: compared with the election records of the 24 histories, ask 18 questions about the history of ancient Greece. 6. Original: comparing with the 100 officials of the 24 histories, ask 30 questions about the history of ancient Greece. 7. Original: according to the 24 histories geography, ask a few questions about the history of ancient Greece. 8. Original: according to the 24 histories Shiwoji, ask a few questions about the history of ancient Greece.